Never had a Glaswegians. You can't hear me because it's too noisy. Kia ora and greetings and welcome to you all. I wish to pay homage to Her Holiness the Mayor, who's I would like to point out,
it's only your worship.
His sister arrived with Leanne's meal, which I might point out was purchased somewhere else, but however. I'm not one to harbour a grudge, but I will.
Well, when you serve healthy food, Gary, you will be there.
Never cross a Dalziel, and they have to have the last say.
No, we don't.
Right, Jim, this is a difficult crowd to manage, I'm afraid. It's the greatest concentration of shit stirrers this side of the black stump. Now, talking of shit stirrers, Ken McInerney is a planner from way back. In fact, Adam was playing fullback for the Arabs, I think, when you started. But Ken is trained in a proper way. He was trained under the Old Town and Country Planning Act. And Ken has some guests tonight that he's going to feed those revolting mutton birds. Lucky him, lucky someone else. But anyway, Ken would like to have the last say first. So Ken, would you like to? Thank you.
Part of our cultural heritage, mutton birds, otherwise known as tiki, but I wouldn't mention that in front of Gary Moore.
Swallow the microphone.
Now look, I just wanted to say a couple of words with regard to something which is in the notice of this week's meeting, and that is something called the St Albans motorway. Now, I get a fair bit of stick because I was involved as a transportation planner in the Christchurch City Council in the 1960s and 70s, and when a certain person came along and it was biffed out, I threw my toys out of the cot and departed. But I'd like to just say that there were amongst the people who planned that section of the motorway that went from Belfast to the Opawa Sockburn Expressway, and that's a very successful little stretch of sub-motorway, expressway. There were people like Malcolm Douglas, who I've spoken to today, who sends his kind regards. Bill Williams, sadly 6 foot under, or maybe flying, because he was a good singer. Jeff Suggett, gone. John Dryden, sometimes seen around the parish. Mike Gadd, gone. John Ince, somewhere in the lower North Island. Bruce Williams, Gary Main up in Tauranga, and myself. We designed a corridor that ran between Pack Street and Madras Street, and we owned 2/3 of the properties. Wow. And we owned them down through the city as well. And I've often thought, I wonder how the city would have changed had we been able to press on with that in its 2 stages, because it was designed in 2 stages, one for dual carriageways at ground level with appropriate intersections and ramps on and off, with enough room covered by generous landscaping to enable an elevated section to be built from just north of Beeley Avenue down through the city and down onto the Sockburn Littleton Expressway. Wow. Now, the person who totally buggered this motorway project is our chairman. I'm not going to congratulate you, and you're not welcome for Titi. Although what I say is that at 80 years of age, just recently, this is the skin of a mutton bird eater. I've eaten mutton bird since I was able to chew on the bones. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to attending future meetings. Gary, you're doing a magnificent job, old boy, but you really buggered it up for me.
What's that? Apology? No, I'm completely unrepentant. Could I point out?
I'm sorry, I have to
What's that? I should be unrepentant. We saved 350 people's homes.
People love you, Gary.
And have we known the and can I point out that there is somebody else here, an old professor of transport who was on your side as well. But in the corner there is Jan Wright, and she and I were the two that fought the motorway. And Jan went on to, we started as St Albans Residents Association, and I ended up as Mayor and she ended up as Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, on learning how to play the game. And Ken, we won. So, having given Ken far too much time, I think it's really important for us. I think we've had a lot of opportunities post-earthquake, and there's a lot of experience around the world where after a disaster, there's all sorts of responses, some of them healthy, some of them not healthy, and we've had them all here. And one of the things that I wanted to get Jim to do is Jim's had, I wrote it up about it in our notes, huge experience around the world. And he's been here and run into a whole lot of bridges, block walls, everything. And what I wanted to get him to do tonight was to actually say to us, as a really skilled urban designer from working right around the world, what have we done wrong? What can we do to rectify it? So Jim Lunday.
And of course, me being me, I'm not going to talk about that. Because I hate the buzzwords, but I am more a futurist. I tend to look forward rather than backwards. But I like and I can't say it in Maori, but I love the Maori saying that to move forward you have to look backwards, and I think that's really, really true. So a little bit of this is doing that, but it's really looking at where we go. I'm moving off to fresher pastures, but it's good, and I'll explain some of that. So in essence, I showed this I showed the title to my son, who will feature in this a little bit. He's very important to me, and Christchurch has been really, really important to him. And I would say, if Christchurch could be the kind of environment that Hagley School is, we'd be the happiest city in the world, and the most successful city, and the most empowering city in the world. So it is a love letter, but like all lovers, it's not all happy and moving forward. And I've always had a habit of writing love letters when it was too late and leaving. I haven't changed, obviously. So I would like to start off this with a song. No, I won't. I am a Glaswegian.
I belong to Glasgow.
And I do belong to Glasgow. And Glasgow belongs to me, as the song says. And I think that's really important, because I think that what the earthquake did, and the government moving in, and I'm not going into the reasons and whether it was good or bad, what it did was disenfranchise a large sector of the community and the council staff. And with that, as lovers, when lovers are usurped or they're overtaken, they get bitter. So there's a little bit of that around, and I think it's time to move beyond that. This is a new decade, and this is time to move forward, and to repair some bridges, and maybe to just take some bridges away because we don't need them anymore. And so it's a case of both the things. And what I would like you to do and I usually hate these things, but I want you to sit for just a couple of minutes, and I want you to think about a city that you would like to hand over to your children or grandchildren in 2050. Then I would like you to turn to your friend next door and in 2 or 3 words tell them what that city might look like. That's all. And then I'll start the talk. I'll sing if you don't stop talking. You won't want that. Now, did any of you have an image like this in your head? No, of course you didn't. Partway through last year I thought that might be me. But I could find the positive in it as well. You know, no taxes, no mortgage to pay, but we won't worry about it. I bet you none of you had an image like that.
I do.
He had more birds.
Oh, that's... I'm sorry. But it's a future. It's a future for cities. It's a future for countries. Did anybody have an issue, an image of their kids growing up in a city like this? Well, there are lots of people do. And even here. And we have armed offender squads driving around the Bay of Plenty at the moment, and we've got search without warrant happening. Is this the kind of city that you want? Is that the civic environment you want?
We could get rid of the helicopter.
2050?
After a while.
Is this the city you want? It's the one my son wanted, by the way. You know, really cool. But in my mind, 2050, if we don't move faster and change where we're going, we could be like this. Because retail is disappearing, hospitality is disappearing and changing, so we need to move quick and we need to change things. Did you have an image like this for 2050?
Who paid for that?
It's not real. It's a virtual reality. A merging of water and buildings and movement and plants. So what are the big issues that we're going to, because the talk was what, as a planner and an urban designer, what we should be focusing on. And yeah, I could have got up and talked about gravel car parks and on-street parking and bicycle lanes, but that's low level. That all falls into place if you get the other things right. In Geelong, I've chosen one thing that we're focusing on, which is 2035 carbon neutral CBD. One thing, everything flows from that. You need a public transport system. It can't be based on diesel. You need to change your construction industry because 40% of construction is waste, and something like 70% adds to carbon. Everything, you have to stop knocking down buildings, whether they're heritage or not, and think, do I knock them down or do I convert them, do I refurbish them? There are so many things and it touches everything. So, and climatic events, equity, if we can't create a fair society, it's not worth having a society, is it? Not for me. And so when we had the sort of trickle down theory of the new right, we took a wrong turn, and even Jim Bolger said that, not that recently, but a while ago. It was wrong. But we still kept on that trajectory, we haven't changed it. We've altered it a little bit, and there's good moves happening now, but we didn't really change that trajectory. We're still a consumer society, based on consumerism. You can't have sustainability and consumerism at the rate we've got. It's impossible. Clean water, absolute must. Total must. What goes with that actually is clean soil too. And soil that is healthy and alive and has the right nutrients in it. And that also goes with food security. We export most of our food and then we import it. That's kind of weird, I don't quite get that. And then affordability. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, it's about affordability. You know, you take a rich person here and drop them into Monaco, they probably feel poor. You know, and so it's affordability. We don't need as much things as we need. And that's the beauty of getting older, because you go through these different stages and then you realise all of that wasn't actually that important. And it's not important for 80% of the population because they don't have anything. But we focus on the 20% that have a lot. And I will be a little bit political and naughty on this one. The debate on rates at the moment. Who are the people that are complaining? The people with the highest amount of wealth. Because the poor don't own their properties. And they're the ones that want a free library. And they want cheap swimming pools. And they want decent public transport. So I know where my vote goes. And I'm not in amongst that now. I was. And I could be tomorrow, like the guy here feeding the pigeons. It could be okay, but I'd probably have a dog with me as well. So we are a critical point. Worldwide, but also here in Christchurch, we are at the tipping point. Business as usual won't work in the future. You might disagree with that because it's great being up here. I can just make a bold statement like that. But it won't work. So, looking forward, these are just notes. This is an early map. You would know that map, you probably drew it. No, this is an early map of a fairly compact Christchurch. Why was it compact? It was transit oriented. If you lived outside of the transit zone, the tram, then you didn't go into places every day. You were living in a fairly self-reliant situation and you would make a journey into the nearest tram stop. But most people live within half a kilometre of a tram stop to get back and forward to different places. For education, for shopping, for religion, for everything. And all these areas, these were multinodal. All these areas had the local areas that people could walk to. We had a garden city. We did produce our own food. Most people produced their own food themselves, or at least a proportion of it. We ate from the basket that was given to us in Canterbury. And before that, so did the indigenous people. They lived in a sustainable way using what was around them. This was just as sustainable to a certain extent. It was certainly a very, very low eco footprint compared to where we are now. So this idea of transit and building density around a public transport system dedicated isn't new. It's where we started. In the space of 10 years, the oil industry and the car industry transformed everything in 10 years. We started with trams, in 10 years we didn't have trams, and that's repeated in many cities. And we had developed suburbia. And where did that energy come from? And why don't we have that energy to save the world now? We don't have the energy. What is wrong with us? We could do all that and it was exciting. You know, that I caught the coattails of all that when I went to architecture school. Architecture was exciting back then. It was bold, it was new, we were changing things. We were doing social experiments. All of it didn't turn out too good. I worked on some high-rise apartments in Glasgow which they pulled down, but we won't talk about that. And here's where, this is the older one, but here is where we're at. We are blessed with a flat city. it will cost with it as well to a certain extent, because a flat city means we have to pay extra attention to the architecture, we have to pay extra attention to our transport network and our walking and our biking, we have to pay extra attention to our landscape, and then it creates beauty, and which we've got. But when you look at that photo, which is, a lot of that has gone now, this is not the latest, I could fit Paris in there, I could put the whole city in there, and it would be more beautiful than it is. So we have so much potential still to unlock, but we need to have more radical thinking of how we do it. Building townhouses at 1.5 million isn't going to do it. Because that isn't where the market is here at the moment. Neither should it ever be there, because that's not affordable unless you're already in the market. Neither is 500,000 or 450 if you're not in the market. So we need to find different ways. And there are many other ways, and they're being investigated. So make sure you vote properly at the election. I can't say these things now because I don't work for the government or council. So if we want to drive back to the dark ages, there's a certain vote you can do, or if we want to move forward to the future, we need to give the politicians more courage to do it better without certain partners. Right. Two key planners in history, because I'm a planning geek and an urban designer. Patrick Geddes. I remember from my geography lectures, and there's an ex-professor of geography here, but I remember geography lectures at school, not at university, didn't do geography, but they talked about Christchurch as being the perfect city region. We weren't talking about the city, we were talking from the hills to the sea and from the rivers to the river. It is the perfect city region. Yet we break it up into arbitrary boundaries. You know, we have Ashburton and we have Selwyn and we have whatever. They're arbitrary boundaries. They mean nothing to the natural environment. And so we have one control over rivers in one, and then later another control in another. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There is no logic to it, and it needs to be cast aside straight away. You know, so that's one thing. At the next level is another famous planner who actually, in a strange way, created Christchurch, the Garden City. Ebenezer Howard, the Garden City movement. Ebenezer Howard's vision was multinodal cities, all connected by public transport, canals, because rail hadn't quite been invented, to a central city with 58,000 people in it. And he'd worked out this is what you needed to keep universities going, all that sort of stuff, and the civic life, and then these other centres, and then countryside between, feeding itself. An elegant theory. He wasn't an urban designer, he wasn't a planner. I think he was a publicist, he created books, and so he created that, which the New Zealand Land Corporation inherited, that Garden City movement. If you put these two people together, you start to get an idea of where Christchurch could go. Patrick Geddes, by the way, was a fascinating individual with this huge big beard like that. Came from Edinburgh. He founded Scots College in Montpellier, which was an architecture and planning school. And basically he died, and his family died, because he worked in the slums of India to figure out how to actually improve them. Because he figured out early on, you don't improve places by knocking them down and rebuilding them. Which is what they did in Glasgow. I wasn't talking about Christchurch there. Somebody else did that to Christchurch, not the council. It was called Jerry Brown. Or did they just fall out of bed one day? I'm not sure.
Was that the planner who did the Linwood canals coming in from? Was that the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration was of connecting with canals and getting your traffic. The roads were for public transport and horses and people walking and all that. All the other stuff was happening that way. So, looking at the future might not be building in concrete and doing everything modular. The future might be using local materials again. You know, I don't know if has anybody here been to the Green School in Bali? Green School is an international school in the middle of Bali. Lots of expats send their kids there. It's all built of bamboo, but beautifully. And they have a factory that creates bamboo, structures to be built. And then there are houses there, and everything that is used in the building is grown in their land. And they have a school there, and they do IB, and it's that thing for a lot of expats up there. But they also accept, I think it's about 40% local kids come into the school as well. So it's a mixture, and there's lots of models around the world of places that work. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we went back and started weaving with rapu and making some of our structures and accepting they're temporary and they won't be there forever? A community building that we might rebuild later, but we don't need to spend 20 million on. I don't know if Gary would remember, because it was more Johnny that I was dealing with. We tried to do a bamboo structure for the first Smash pallets. I wanted to do it because I'd just been to Bali, came back, let's do bamboo and do it all. And then I hurt health and safety, and I hurt the building regulations, so it ended up scaffolding. But what a lost opportunity to do something different. But people hadn't caught up to the earthquake then, and I understand that now. Like, people was trying to live normally. Let's do everything the way we used to do it, some normality, because their personal life was chaos. They go into work and try and rubber stamp everything as normal, but it wasn't normal. And that is a lesson.
Jim, can you move 2 inches closer to the microphone? We'll turn it up.
I can speak louder if you want. Okay, no, that's okay. I'll speak closer and louder. So, the future of building, what an opportunity given the research that has been done in Canterbury University, and the fact that we have an abundance of crap timber in the country that is actually only good for laminating together to make stronger fabric. Why aren't we building like that? Why don't we just say, you can't build anything unless you build in that?
Catholic schools doing it. That's right.
Oh, debate the Catholic school another day. I vote for the birds. I did grow up a Catholic, but no, I agree, and it's used, and it's being used more and more. But unless we use it, we can't grow the industry. If we grow the industry, we can export the industry, and it's called import replacement. Let's replace what we're bringing in with other products and then export it. One of the failures of the rebuild, in my opinion, with the $40-odd billion that was spent, was we didn't go and target new businesses. One of the first things, and then we wonder why we find it difficult to get people, because people only come when there's jobs. And I've got 3 children, they're all away now. Will they come back? Well, not unless we create more jobs, high quality jobs. Tourism isn't a high quality job. Neither is hospitality. It's something you do in between a job. Well, no, it's something you do if you're an actor or an artist, actually. But that would be my son, because he's doing fine art. And I say, that's good, we'll do a barista course as well at the same time. So you can earn a living. So basically, we should be using our skills in technology, our IT, and our university bases to create new industries. And we should be subsidising, in brackets, that by enforcing it. So you can build 2-storey houses unless you use this. Then you can go 5 stories. We're doing that in Geelong, by the way. We're enhancing development. It's called transfer development rights, originally used to save heritage buildings. There's nothing in the Act in Australia that stops you using it for anything. So green technologies, cross-through site links, architectural excellence can all buy you bonuses. But as of right, you can only do 4 stories. So if you do a crap 4-storey building, nobody notices. You do a crap 10-storey building, everybody notices. So that's the developers and the architects who want to push the envelope get rewarded. My experience, and I have to say in Christchurch before the earthquake as well, was when you try to do something different, you were put through many, many, many more hoops than somebody doing the ordinary. And I had lots of clients walk away from me saying, you're crazy. Look next door, they've done an ordinary subdivision at a time, we still haven't got a consent. So some of the problems within the council are deeply rooted and they're not a result of the earthquake. That would be true of almost every organisation, not just councils. Every big organisation has that. Simplicity is the key. Simplicity of rules. District plans that are that size, not that size. Rules that are that size, not that size. No books of rules that size ever created a great city. So my vision of the city, which I still hold, which is something I did in a TEDx talk, but it was the wrong time, was the opportunity to rediscover our water. The big opportunity to rediscover and embrace water. Not lost yet. Not at all lost. This is something that I'm going to say. Cities evolve and change forever. And so 10 years is a blip. And so there's always time to change and always time to do things. It's just like life. I've done lots of things right, lots of things wrong. I've actually enjoyed the wrong more than the right most of the time. But there's always time to correct behaviour. And that's really all we're talking about, is a correction of behaviour. That correction of behaviour starts with you guys, not just mean you, but citizens. We've lost the citizen participation to a large extent. You can see that through the voting. We need to reinvent that. Now, I have an answer for everything, so I've got that. Then once you've reinstated your water, you have to start connecting your green networks. Now, the council's been doing that for quite a long time, but we need to continue that. And so you create these green networks. You have to also respect your suburban greenness. The problem with intensifying suburbia is you just worsen the city. Is that such a word? No, you make the city worse. You make the city worse because you take away the tree canopy, you diminish the quality of life for everybody around by densifying it, but you don't reach the density that you need for public transport or for local services. So people still use the cars. So you get more cars using the streets than otherwise. So at the moment, we're seeing densification of the inner suburbs, not of the city centre, or the road corridors, or our key activity centres. Westfield should be rubbing their hands and saying, we could build 5 apartment towers over our shopping mall in Riccarton.
Yep.
But they won't do that while we've got people, little developers dropping houses down in every back garden all over the city, because that's where the growth is going. So you need to control growth. There's good growth and bad growth. Not all growth is bad growth. Good growth is along transit corridors, around central nodal areas and in the CBD. Good growth would also be moving the university, but I won't go there again. The beauty in Geelong is they had already done that. They are decanting the university from suburbia into the centre, right down on the prime land in the waterfront. They're using up all the old big wool buildings that would have been left derelict or knocked down. And it's looking quite magnificent at that point. It's still a fairly ho-hum city. It's not there yet, but it's going to double in population in 10 years because it's the growth area for Melbourne. I worry about Melbourne because Melbourne's going to go from 5 to 10 million people in 20 years. It's already tweaking its sense. So that's an opportunity for cities like Christchurch. They're very similar in many ways, and Geelong and Christchurch are very similar. Geelong's probably at an earlier developmental stage, but probably more radical because of the era it's in now. The next thing is reinforce your villages. Using landscape, using green corridors, using green streets and transit corridors to intensify your neighbourhoods and create neighbourhood centres that are vibrant so that you reduce the need to move. So you create a walkable neighbourhood that's got everything you need there and lots of bump spaces where you meet your neighbours and citizen activation that makes people bind with that neighbourhood. Now, that means maybe in the future, when it's time to redo the schools, going back to small neighbourhood schools instead of agglomerating them into massive colleges. But there's still time to do that if you're looking at 2050. But But the seeds have to be sown in a strategy now for everything, including transit corridors. If you don't sow the seed now, it will never happen. It's the seed that's sown now that makes it happen then. So I don't want, if I ever have any grandchildren, doesn't look like it won't, but if I ever have any grandchildren, why would you? Why would you bring them into a place where you can't afford housing, the environment's fucked, and wages, you're working day and night, especially my daughter Nancy Young, slave camps, and so why would they want, even if they had time or energy when they get home? I shouldn't go there, should I? Then you start connecting these neighbourhood centres. You already have this here. You have the inner and outer ring roads that the public transport goes on. So just make it dedicated routes so that they move quickly and swiftly, and electrify them like tomorrow. Find a sponsor. Go and do a JV with some big electrical company in the world, or Tesla or someone. We don't have a lot of money, we just have to be clever. I think Rutherford said that. We don't have a lot of money, so we have to be clever. That was his answer to doing things on the smell of an oily rag. And then you bring the corridors in from the other parts of Christchurch. Don't tell me Rolleston isn't Christchurch. Don't tell me Kaipoi's not Christchurch. Don't tell me Waimac's not Christchurch. They depend on Christchurch. They get educated here, they go to university here, they go to the galleries here, they go to the movies here, they go to the theatre. It was probably half of the people that live in Kaipoi down seeing, at concerts the other night when I was there. So basically, you then bring these in, and you have this walled city in the centre, your centre of excellence, the place that delivers things you can't get in your neighbourhood and district centres. The great galleries, the great theatres, the educational institutes, the research institutes, the things that don't fit within your neighbourhood, but you can still get to them, whether you've got money or not, and whether you can drive or not. And we have to scale up our centres and embrace the neighbourhood and embrace the landscape. So open up the thing. Go up, but create space around. Play with the water. So it's the only sketch that I've done, because I didn't want it, this isn't about answers, it's about strategy. But we can create stuff that feels like Christchurch, and we can densify. If you put higher density, you need higher amenity. That amenity can be your neighbourhood centre, it can be your main street, it can be having a great cafe around the corner, having a local gallery, but it's also landscape, it's openness, and it's nature. We have a successful city when we've got rare birds breeding in the centre of it. Oh, we have. The black-billed gull. Oh. And I'm sure I heard a tui in my garden that everybody says it couldn't have, but I'm sure it did. Because we used to have them in Devonport, where I lived in Auckland. Sure I heard them. So, here's the city. So that was just a plan, hand-drawn, roughly with felt tip pens. Does it fit? Heck, it does. Yeah. And look, we start to get corridors coming in the greenery, and it's all stitching together, but these are now transit corridors coming in rather than cars. We've got trams, we've got buses. And even within that city, it's about the neighbourhood. Because why would I live in the city centre unless I can live in a neighbourhood? If you live in New York, you don't live in New York. You live in a neighbourhood in New York. You live in a village. Jane Jacobs said that. So we live in villages. And this is what the talk is about. We all live in villages. And it takes a village to look after old people. I won't use the other one. Because we're all getting older. Do you want to end up in one of these pensioner villages? This is not a village. No. It's not a village. But it's a fault of creating the wrong kind of society. It's a default. That doesn't stop rest homes, dementias, that's a different thing. But to move into something like that when you're able, because because you're scared because you're left alone is a failure of our societal fabric. And so we need to repair that societal fabric so that we don't have that sort of thing happening. And each of these neighbourhoods should be producing their own food and having all weather areas and developing things. You know, we're doing it to a small scale, you know, with Bailey. Let's scale it up. We can create urban food. We can do all that. There is no need for unemployment. We have so much to do. You know, so let's employ the unemployed and start producing food, planting trees, doing that. What is retirement? Nobody should retire. If you're retired, you should get shot like a horse, basically. You know, retirement is just moving on from something that you had to do to something you want to do. And that's what we do. And so that is retirement. I'm lucky. I've been retired all my life. You didn't see where I started off. Life, once I got away from Eastwood, and the shipyards was a holiday. So where are we now? Cashel Mall is better than it was before the earthquake. It has got better retail, it's refurbished. I won't talk about the architecture because that's a specialist thing. That's my opinion. As a designer, I'm a bit, yeah, but business for business, it competes with Westfield. So we built today's city, that's all. That was today. It's not bad. Everybody thinks I'm going to bag these things. They're not bad, but we built today's city. There was a reason why we did it. We had an earthquake and we had to get people back. I still think there could be more imagination and innovation. I'm not saying that, but let's just go through it. Margaret May Playground. I thought it was funny at first when I heard one of the big projects was a playground hub. But then you see the people that go there and the pleasure of it, and the multicultural nature and the diversity. Great, and it's free, and it attracts everybody. Picnics and, you know, whole Iraqi families and Iranians and Maori and Pacific Islanders and Pakeha, everybody's mixing happily. And there's some funky things happening in what few buildings that Jerry left because he'd run out of energy or money. And that's a really cool thing down in Wells Street. That would encourage me to live in the inner city. It's got, okay, it's sounding terrible now as a working class ex-welder, it's got yoga, it's got organic food, it's got well-being, it's got that. But also there's a really cool Spanish bar. So it caters for everybody. That's not bad, that is good. It's still today, it's not tomorrow. And the riverfront, it's today. Slightly better version than what we had. If you think bigger is better, and that there's more bars and more restaurants than there was in the strip, still performing the same function. And there's a little thing that I call, and I've never actually written up much about it. I wrote an article but didn't get any further. I'm a really poor academic, having taught for 12 years, but called Urban Memory. And I really believe in it, and I need to do research on it at some point. I have a real belief that there's a plasticism about cities, and regardless of how you push and pull them, they kind of go back to their natural shape. You know, so Johnny's bar wanted to go back to Poplar Lane. He didn't know that. He was just drawn naturally back to where he was, as does the other hospitalities, even though it was meant to be the innovation area. It kind of came back. And then you go with the bars down at the waterfront, they've all drifted back, even some of the same players. And you start seeing that, there's that urban memory. But again, today's city. It's not tomorrow's city. It's not what I want in 2050 for my grandkids. Have you noticed something else common to them all? They're all based on having a high disposable income. And they're not affordable.
Apart from the playground.
Apart from the playground, yeah. And then Riverside. is fantastic. It suddenly brought that bottom part alive. But again, you need coin in your pocket. And it's still today, it's just catch up. We've caught up. So the challenge, particularly for politicians and council people in here, is how do we rapidly move forward from catch up? And it doesn't need to cost a lot of money. Just take it out of the road budget. It is about that word leadership. It's not about the money. But leadership comes from having a groundswell of people behind you. Real dynamic leadership comes from the confidence if you make a decision you're not going to be voted out. Let's just be pragmatic about that. Because if you're voted out, you can't affect any change. And so that drives most politicians, or that politician, but it does drive. Been around a long time. And not in politics, but around politics a long time. And Helen Clark would be the classic person. If you're not in power, you can't change anything. Right? And it's true. All you can do is wail at the side like that person that wails all the time in National Party, always on the radio wailing about something. Always something wrong, never got an answer. Hard to political broadcasting. I vote SNP anyway, but I haven't found anybody standing for it yet.
I would too if I lived in Scotland.
So, leadership. Leadership isn't about management.
No.
Leadership is about building consensus, building an innovative team, and moving forward. Leadership is about managing risk, not avoiding risk. You can't avoid risk. You may as well stay in bed as a baby and never get out. And I've worked a lot with developers, and I've been a developer. Development is risky. If you think, I've done this, if you drill down in any development deep enough, you don't do it. You just won't do it. You have to have a vision for what you want and a method of getting there, and just hope all the planets align by the time you get there. And so there's a leap of faith you need to make. To do that, you need a groundswell from the community. So leadership, get back about where I'm at the moment, and this is a bit sort of personal, is that I got a job as the UNESCO Urban Design Champion for Geelong and the manager of urban planning and heritage and art. So that's my official title. Because my kid was at Hagley, I couldn't go, so I'd been going there 1 week a month. My kid's chosen not to go to RMIT, much to my dismay, but he chose to go to Dunedin Art School, which is a really good choice. It's a great place for him, and it's a great place to go. So I changed my thing, so I now won't be, probably in about a month's time, the manager, but I will stay the Urban Design Champion. So I have an ongoing role there as the UNESCO Urban Design Champion. That's really nice because I get to go to Dundee and I get to go to Bilbao. That wasn't the driving factor, by the way. So I get to eat really good food and drink really good whiskey. I hope it's not the other way around. So Geelong is a beautiful place. It has a long way to go yet. But it's also got massive problems because of its growth. But we've chosen the strategy going forward with the new council and the state government is the growth corridors will not be designed around the car. They will be designed around transit. And that growth, there's 400,000 people going into the growth corridors. It's another city. If you did that suburbia, it will just become like any other sprawling city. And it's too close to Melbourne. It would end up sprawling to Melbourne. And that would be the end of it. It's got a very proud history, like Christchurch. It has got a street pattern very similar. It's a grid street. It's 35 metre wide streets, which we've decided you actually only need 5 metres for cars. So we've got this luxurious amount of greenery that we're now going to be playing with. So my job is to work at the high level policy in that and let everybody else do the hard work. And believe it or not, I haven't even presented to the council or the state government yet, but we've got all that through. So there is a real momentum there. The other job I'm doing is with Foresight, and that is a company. It's a company with quite a lot of staff. We've got 100 planners and another 100 other staff. ecologists, environmentalists. It's very much a land, people, place, an iwi-based company. So it's to grow a national urbanist presence, because they realise, even though they work on the landscape and mainly, that if we don't get our cities right, then we will lose in the environmental challenge that we're facing us, because it's where we all live. Now, oops, this one. Why do I do all this? It's for them. That's my 3 kids. It's Blair and Hannah and Lily. Lily went to Victoria. Hannah's at Otago, but she's been teaching in Cambodia. And Blair arrived here as a fragile little creature who went to Hagley and had really good care with Sue Bagshaw, who is a saint. She shouldn't have been given a damehood, she'd been given a sainthood. And basically, he got outstanding in NCEA in his art subjects. 5 years ago, he was in hospital. So he has come a massive way because of this city, because the city cares. So that's why it's a love letter, because you rescued my child. So I have a debt to pay back to the city. And so that's another reason why I'm staying, because I believe in the city. But you don't believe in yourself yet. And I can feel that and I see that because I didn't grow up here, I'm not from here. I belong to Glasgow, but it belongs to me. Your city doesn't belong to you yet. You need to get it back first, and then you need to own it. That's them now. They're kind of growing up, and they're doing well, and they all love South Island. Hannah's already decided she's not leaving South Island, apart from when she does exotic things like teaching in Cambodia. And she's a scientist, and Lily's a lawyer, and Blair's an artist. And the city, and myself, and all my friends, the Moors, and Jared next door, have grown a fantastic family. It's a village. The village has grown my family in a single year. Without that help and support, I could not exist. And so that's what creates a real city. It's what drives me to create a real city. Equity, fairness, justice, enough for all, just enough. And an environment that is healthy and ongoing healthy. Now, to do that, I think it's about love. And if you love Canterbury, you need a unitary authority. You need to combine all these councils from mountain to sea together, and you need to actually streamline everything. The other side of that is, you need to strengthen the neighbourhood and the community boards within neighbourhoods, and you give more power to them. So you've got a unitary authority working at a high level, but devolving a lot of finance and power to the community level so they make the decisions about what they need in their community. The bigger structure makes the big decisions about going carbon neutral, bringing big industries in, delivering infrastructure, looking after landscape, raising the GDP. Just raising the prices of houses is not going to cut for you. It's the GDP that's important, not raising house prices. You're just chasing your children away, like they've done in Auckland. That's all you're doing is chasing the young away. So you've got to stabilise all that. So learn to love your city again, embrace it, engage in the politics of it at the neighbourhood level, and demand change. The right change, the change you want. Or actually don't. Demand the change I want.
I have to give you immediate feedback, Jim. They didn't enjoy it. Questions, comments?
Do I look like I care?
Hello, Jimmy. Thanks very much for that lovely talk, and thank you for your emphasis on village things. And this is something Gary's been talking about for many years. Just
One of the
wonder
many things
about
he's been talking about.
one of the many things. just wonder about the sociology of that. The people I work with come from all around the world, and when I ask them what do they miss most from their country, they always say the lack of a neighbour's culture. Every time, lack of a neighbourly culture. And I wonder, in that village thing, yes, we can do certain things that you've suggested and Gary's often suggested, but how do we deal with the sociology of interaction? For example, on my street, there's a Christmas party every year. Between Christmas parties, there is no interaction at all with neighbours. Nothing at all. And so I wonder how we can deal with that, because I think that's a great challenge for us.
It is a big question, because we become modernisation and suburbanisation have created us as very insular creatures. So we drive back to a suburban house with a big garden, you drive into your garage, get out your garage, you go through your laundry into your house. You're tired after a long day at work. So you think, should we go out for a meal? No. Can't be bothered cooking, let's dial up Uber, it gets delivered. Oh, let's open a glass of wine, and then you're in. Now, different if you live in a more compact neighbourhood, and you have less space, and you create more bump spaces. A lot of it isn't the formalisation. A lot of the countries they come from, it's wonderful because they have all these events and formalisations, usually based around religion or other things, and they come together. Like, you know, in Opalia, in Orkney, and they've got all these different, every time it's solstice. They've been going on for thousands of years, it's really hard to invent them. But it's the bumping into someone, it's going to the same cafe every day, and having the coffee that you always drink delivered, even though you don't want it that morning. And you haven't got the heart to say, actually, I've stopped drinking milk, I'm going to have a straight black coffee now. But it's all these things. And meeting, and the area that I live in, you know, which is Kilmore, Oxford, it's a broken neighbourhood, but it's still a neighbourhood. And people still meet, and we still have a couple of cafes that people meet in, and you see people, and I know people in the street. I'm lucky I have Jared next door. We operate as an extended unit. Cook extra food, take it next door, because that's what we used to do in Glasgow. You know, in Glasgow you didn't make a small pot stew, you make a huge one. And then if it wasn't finished that night, no fridges, Mum didn't have a fridge, you take it to the neighbour's house. It's usually an older one or a single parent, you take that there and you give it, there's, you know, it's just what you did. So they come from cultures like that. We need to rediscover that. We lost a perfect opportunity after the earthquake when people discovered their neighbours, and then the dead hand of the state moved in, and with good intention. I saw it in Glasgow. The dead hand of the state killed Glasgow. It built the housing schemes that I grew up in. All my siblings loved the slum areas they grew up in. They've only got fond memories. I've only got memories of fights and gang violence where I grew up. No attachment to it whatsoever. I go back to Glasgow and never go back to that area. It's not an area I'm interested in. I actually go to where my parents grew up, and where, well, my parents, they didn't come from Glasgow, but I went back to where my siblings grew up. And that time I found a vintage shop, and of course it was a cousin that was running it, because all the Lundays lived in that area, and some of them still do. That's what makes a community. It's longevity. But the way you do it is civic movement. You create civic. And so that localisation of politics and services, and even working, you know, why give out a contract to a private contractor when a neighbourhood can have 5 gardeners that look after all the parks and open spaces in there, and they live locally, and they are 24 hours a day watching that space, and we create local jobs, and they're watching the streets and they get to know. I lived in Devonport for 20 odd years. Devonport used to have that before it was amalgamated in Auckland City. Even North Shore kept Devonport separate. And if you want to see, you get Andrew there, Littleton operates like that to a certain extent. Littleton is still a community. It's gentrifying rapidly, but it still has a diversity, and even although the main street's broken, it's still strong, and that market pulls it all together. You know, And so we have examples. That's their equivalent of Jane Jacobs going and looking, you know, in New York and saying, this is what works. You don't need, as an urban designer, you don't take a model from somewhere else, you explore what already works in that place and you replicate it. And so it's replication that we need to do. Yeah.
Great talk, Jim. The Stats Department today released information that said just over 1 in 4 of renting households, 27.9%, spent 40% or more of their household income on rent and other housing costs. In contrast, 1 in 8, 12.6% of people who owned or partly owned their own home spent 40% or more of their household income on housing costs. And I think this means the challenge for us is how do we build the small end of town, not the big end.
And it's a building challenge, but it's a financing challenge too. The banks are swayed against financing models that might work differently. So there's people that know more about that than me, but I think the statistics that are coming out are quite scary now. You know, it's not, and that's what I take it back to right to the beginning, is this the society you want to hand over? It's not the one I want to hand over. And so I'm going to spend the next 10, 15 productive years of my life trying to make a different system with the little changes I can do in my profession. That's all. Because I'm not a politician. I don't want public office. It's not my thing. I have very bad language and bad manners. So, and I could not do the job that these guys do. I really couldn't. It's a unique breed of people that can do that. And we should actually applaud them. And we should celebrate them. And I tell you the other thing is, we need to change the media. We need to change the newspapers' attitudes to life. They need to start getting the glass half full and stop whining on about every little thing. And I'm really pleased nobody mentioned car parking tonight. Otherwise I would become a Glaswegian again. But
That's it. I know.
One more thing. I want you all to think of one thing in the city that's happened since the earthquake that you think is absolutely amazing, and tell your neighbour. Just quickly, like three seconds. The second one is think of something that you're not happy with, but you could fix. Simply. And do that. 2 seconds again, tell your neighbour. Just off the top of your head, there must be some happening. Right, okay. With that, you've got the things to go out to your community and support, and the things that you can work towards changing. Don't gripe, don't complain, don't moan, don't write letters in complaining, get on and do shit now. Okay? Thank you very much. I love you all.
Thanks, Jim. I must share with you a story. Jim caught up with he had a reunion of some of the guys he was at university with, and they were in a pub in Glasgow last year sometime. And they were all going round, and one of the guys said to Jim, I haven't seen you for a while, Jim. And Jim said, I've been away for 20 years. And this guy said, fuck, what did you do? In Glasgow, being away for 20 years is a very serious crime. Anyway, I think it's really important as at the Tuesday Club where we just play with ideas. And Jim's always brought us fantastic ideas. And it's a sign of somebody who really knows their craft and their art, which he practices, where they can explain it to it in a language that we all understand. And that's what Jane Jacobs was about, and that's what we've got to do. And so, with those challenges from Jim, away you go. Thank you.